ياسين والقرآن الحكيم.
Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wassalamu ala rasulillah. Welcome back to Embracing Quran, and we carry on with the tafsir of Surah Ya Seen. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَيَقُولُونَ مَتَى هَذَا الْوَعْدُ إِن كُنْتُمْ صَادِقِينَ. And they're saying, when is this promise going to come? إِن كُنْتُمْ صَادِقِينَ. If you, O people, who are telling us of the wrath of Allah, of the promise of Allah, of the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can punish us for our negligence, when is it going to come if you happen to be truthful? Bring it on. مَا يَنظُرُونَ إِلَّا صَيْحَةً وَاحِدَةً. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes up the response. Before, Allah is speaking on the tongue of the people, and that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَإِذَا قِيلَ لَهُمْ. When it is said to them, as if somebody else is speaking over here. But now, because their challenge is so powerful, their challenge is so full of arrogance, Allah takes up the response, and Allah says, they're not waiting around for anything. All they're awaiting is one scream, because that's all it's going to take. There is one blow in the trumpet that will take every arrogance of theirs and shatter it apart. And that's called the nafkha of al-faza'. That's called the blowing into the trumpet in which everything comes to an end. تَأْخُذُهُمْ وَهُمْ يَخِصِّمُونَ. When this shout or scream occurs, it will completely seize them in entirety. وَهُمْ يَخِصِّمُونَ. At that point they'll be arguing and disputing with one another, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will seize them all with one scream. That's all it will take. That's all it will take. So for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bring this entire humanity to a halt, all it takes is one scream into a trumpet. And if you don't believe in that, then just believe in what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did to humanity in the recent years. Everything was going as everybody had planned. Everything was going as economists had anticipated. Everything was going as all of the industries had thought. Everything was going as everybody that plans the global direction had been planning. Everything was going just like that. But then suddenly there was a variable that no one thought about. And that was a small virus that the naked eye cannot even see. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took the entirety of humanity by surprise, and everything came to a screeching halt. This is a message from God. Allah is trying to tell you that I am powerful. No matter how much strength you have, remember there's someone superior to you, and that there's a body and entity. There's God before you. There's God that is planning everything. And Allah has the ability to bring things to a halt if He so pleases. So He did that. And that should be a sign for you, and that should be enough of a reminder for you that Allah is capable of this. And Allah is telling these people the same thing. They're saying, وَيَقُولُونَ مَتَى هَذَا الْوَعْدُ. When is this promise of destruction coming? Tell us when it's coming, because we're prepared for it. Allah says, guys, all I have to do is one scream. مَا يَنظُرُونَ إِلَّا صَيْحَةً وَاحِدَةً تَأْخُذُهُمْ. And that one scream will seize all of them, and they will be arguing, and they will be bickering, and they will be disputing. فَلَا يَسْتَطِيعُونَ تَوْصِيَةً. At that moment, they won't even have the time to be able to write their wills, Allah says. وَلَا إِلَىٰ أَهْلِهِمْ يَرْجِعُونَ. And nor will they have the ability to ever go back to their people as well. So when a person is dying, it's a moment where a lot of people, they take the opportunity to write their wills. They've got debts to pay off. They say, take this asset, liquidate it, do this with that, donate this, and so I don't have any responsibilities. I go back to Allah, la liya wa la alayk. I have no responsibilities that I have to bear on the day of judgment. Nothing against me and nothing for me. But Allah says, when that scream comes, when that trumpet is blown, when that happens, they don't have time for that. You don't have time to write your wills. You don't have the ability to go back, because that's it. That was the final moment, and you've been given enough respite and time. Allah continues, and He says, وَنُفِخَ فِي الصُّورِ. And then the trumpet will be blown yet again. فَإِذَا هُمْ مِنَ الْأَجْدَاثِ إِلَىٰ رَبِّهِمْ يَنْسِلُونَ. Then they will be coming out of the ajdath. They will be coming out of the graves. Now there are many words in the Arabic language for a grave. Among the words is another word that Allah will use very, very soon after. And that's the marqad. The marqadu ahlil akhirah is basically the grave. And also another name for a grave is a qabr as well. Another name is jadath, and this can also be pronounced jadaf with a fa as well. And the word jadath, it literally means to dig. Okay, so, and dig with your hand, and to poke a hole into the ground. So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking about the trumpet being blown such that people will be coming out of their graves, Allah uses the word jadath, because jadath means for dirt to be lifted. And when people are coming out of the graves, the dirt will be lifted, and that's why the appropriate word to be used over here is the word jadath. وَنُفِخَ فِي الصُّورِ, and then the trumpet will be blown, فَإِذَا هُمْ مِنَ الْأَجْدَاثِ, then suddenly all of the people who've been buried, they'll come out of these ajdath, these graves that are slowly digging themselves up as people are ripping themselves out of the graves. إِلَىٰ رَبِّهِمْ يَنْسِلُونَ, and they will be coming to God. They will be coming very hastily. They will be coming very rapidly and fast. And the word nasala yansilu has two meanings. One of them is from nasl, which is creation and progeny. And the other one is a nasl, which basically means for something to happen really fast. And so Allah is using this word over here in a very calculated way, just as any word in the Quran is used in a very calculated way. Because they will be coming out of the graves, and the graves will be ripping open. So Allah is painting a picture, and that will be happening very fast. And another thing that will happen is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will send rain down, and the earth will be kind of like impregnated, and people will be being reborn from these graves as well. So the word nasala is the most appropriate thing to mention how fast they will be coming out of their graves, because it also alludes to the fact that they'll be granted a rebirth almost by God as well. إِلَىٰ رَبِّهِمْ يَنْسِلُونَ قالوا يا ويلنا من بعثنا من مرقدنا. And then these people will say, يا ويلنا, oh destruction be to us, woe to us, may we be destroyed. We feel such pain and grief by seeing all of this chaos over here. من بعثنا من مرقدنا, who is the one who took us out of our deep sleep and our grave? هذا ما وعد الرحمن. And now a caller responds that has been designated by Allah. He says, this is what God had promised. But Allah is referred to as Ar-Rahman over here, the most merciful. Because despite all of the chaos on the Day of Judgment, the Day of Judgment is going to be a day in which Allah will be very merciful to humanity. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allows this caller to respond to these people who are coming out of the grave by saying, this is the promise of the most merciful. This is the promise of the one who will have mercy on you today. هَذَا مَا وَعَدَ الرَّحْمَنِ. And Allah always reminds us of the mercy when the Day of Judgment comes. And that's why He says, الْمُلْكُ يَوْمَئِذٍ الْحَقُّ لِلرَّحْمَنِ وَكَانَ يَوْمًا عَلَى الْكَافِرِينَ عَسِيرًا. But remember, for the disbelievers it's a hard day. The dominion on this day, it will be for the Rahman, the ever merciful, but it will be a hard day for those people who disbelieve. And that's why it's an opportunity for people who disbelieve to believe in God. مَا وَعَدَ الرَّحْمَنِ وَصَدَقَ الْمُرْسَلُونَ. And He'll also say, all of those prophets and messengers that were sent to you by God, they were all honest and they were truthful, and you didn't listen. وَصَدَقَ الْمُرْسَلُونَ إِن كَانَتْ إِلَّا صَيْحَةً وَاحِدَةً. It's just one blow of trumpet. It's just one shout and one scream. That's all it was. One single shout and scream. فَإِذَا هُمْ جَمِيعٌ لَدَيْنَا مُحْضَرُونَ. And suddenly all of them, they will be resurrected before us. And all of them will be brought and collected before us. If we go and flip the page and we go to the last page, when did all of this conversation start? It started when Allah said, أَلَمْ يَرَوْا كَمْ أَهْلَكْنَا قَبْلَهُمْ مِنَ الْقُرُونِ أَنَّهُمْ إِلَيْهِمْ لَا يَرْجِعُونَ. Didn't they see how many people I had destroyed before them, these people, and they're not going to be returning back? وَإِن كُلٌّ لَمَّا جَمِيعٌ لَدَيْنَا مُحْضَرُونَ. But the one thing that will be sure to happen is that on the Day of Judgment, everyone will be brought before me, God. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying. And then Allah gives you all of the evidences of why there will be a Day of Judgment and why people will be collected before Allah on the Day of Judgment. Now, after He's given all those evidences, and after He's had that conversation with the people who disbelieved, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, you know what, guys, all it will take is one scream and everyone will be recollected before Allah. Everyone will be resurrected before Allah. Everyone will be gathered before Allah. فَالْيَوْمَ لَا تُظْلَمُ نَفْسٌ شَيْئًا. And today there will be no soul that will be harmed. There will be no soul that will be oppressed. There will be no soul that will go through dhulm, difficulty and trial and oppression. No one will go through that. وَلَا تُجْزَوْنَ إِلَّا مَا كُنْتُمْ تَعْمَلُونَ. So neither will you be oppressed by God by being voided of your good deeds, and nor will your evil deeds be misplaced as well. You will be held to account. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala may forgive you for your evil. That's a choice that Allah can make, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is ever merciful. But Allah will not account you. Allah will not take you to account for more than what you did in terms of evil. وَلَا تُجْزَوْنَ إِلَّا مَا كُنْتُمْ تَعْمَلُونَ. And you will not be given jaza, and you will not be compensated. The reckoning and the compensation and the recompensing, that will only happen based on the actions that you had. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala won't bring the actions of other people and hold you to account. In this world, sometimes you may have not committed a sin, but you may be held to account for it. You might have not done the crime, but you might end up doing the time. On the Day of Judgment, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, He's the one who gathers all the scrolls. He knows what His slaves are doing. Huwa a'lamu bikum. He knows better of you. He knows exactly what you did and what you didn't do. You don't have to tell Him that. Allah has account of everything. He has angels who keep record. And those angels don't even need to keep record, because Allah already has record. And Allah is the one who created you and the record as well, and your action. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows everything that's there. Allah doesn't need any information. So there's no way that Allah will treat you unjustly. That's what Allah is trying to tell you. The only reason why there's a record keeper is so you don't argue on the Day of Judgment. وَلَا تُجْزَوْنَ إِلَّا مَا كُنْتُمْ تَعْمَلُونَ. So that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, and you will not be compensated except based on your actions. And right after Allah talks about the compensation on the Day of Judgment, and the reckoning on the Day of Judgment, and the recompensing on the Day of Judgment, Allah gets into the Day of Judgment itself. Allah talks about the two groups on the Day of Judgment. There's a group of people who will be in Jannah, and Allah will speak of them as well. And there's another group of people who will be in hellfire. Allah will speak of them. And then Allah will speak about how the hisab will take place. And all of that, inshaAllah, we'll learn about in the next episode of the tafsir of Surah Ya Seen. Jazakumullahu khairan for listening. Wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in.